Okay, so Mark here from Rock and Load. This evening, I am joined by the one, the only Mr. Mike Malyan, all the way from London. Is that right?
That is right. I'm back
Yeah,
in London. Yeah.
back in London. Yeah. So Mike is the drummer from the one, the only Monuments, one of the most epic British bands out there at the moment. Absolute pleasure talking to you, Mike. How are you keeping?
I'm doing really well, thanks, Mark. Yeah, we as just came back from an amazing show out in India at like 2 weeks' notice. Pretty jet lagged,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, feeling really good, really excited about everything at the moment. Yeah.
How do you? I have never been in India now. So which way do you go? You do go direct from London?
Yeah, I think this time we went direct to Delhi, and then we stayed for a little bit for like an evening, and then we did an internal flight to the state of Manipur, which was really weird. It's like you've got a separation in India. You've got a bit of Bangladesh, and then India happens again.
Oh yeah,
so it's like a little India island, and then it's right on the border of Myanmar. Apparently a really dangerous area, as it turns out. We had to get like special permission from the government of Manipur to say that we were allowed to enter, and then we had literally like the army and military like escorting us everywhere, driving like as we drove 3 hours to the hills and the mountains to go to this festival. We had like police cars with the blues and twos and everything, and then like actual armed like police the whole way, and like at the front of the stage they're all just lined up with guns, like, you know, security are normally there to catch you crowd surfing.
Yeah.
These guys are there, like, you know, it was just the most mental experience. But yeah, we actually invited by the Manipur tourism board of like the government to do that, so it was extremely official and very much a one in a lifetime experience. That was 3 days ago was that show, and it was insane. It was 20,000 people, and they live streamed the whole thing on a channel called Pony TV on YouTube, so you can watch it all back. I'm just kind of still in that world in my head right now, which is why I'm going on about it, because it's probably the most unique, crazy gig of my life. But yeah, really fun.
It is, isn't it? Sometimes when you have those experiences and you go back to normality, it's like, did that actually happen? Did I dream that or something? You know, it's bizarre.
Yeah, I'm still like really not sure what culture is anymore.
I'm sure. So like, Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey with the drums. Like, when did you kick off that journey, and was the drums your first love?
Man, that's a great question. I actually started off as just a really musically interested kid, and I did a lot of piano when I was a kid. I like played the crap out of the piano. I think my parents helped me get lessons from the age of 6, and by the age of 10, 11, I was doing a lot of classical playing. You know, I was going up the grades, doing the whole thing, and then I think I just hit my teenage life and just went, nah, I want to be a rebel. So I just picked up the sticks and started playing rock and metal around about 10, but I think I started studying it and like focusing on it about 12. I'm like 30 now, so I guess that's 18 years, of which 10 has been professional since I joined Monuments. I think I joined Monuments about 12 years ago, and we've just been touring ever since we started. It's just been growing and growing over the years. I had to take like a few years out because of some major injuries. I took a break from the band between the second and fourth album.
Yeah.
And got some hip surgery, got a lot of physio, learned how to deal with my body a bit better. And
Were you in an accident at that time?
No, I just played too much drums. Just didn't look after my body too well. Yeah, it can be very physically demanding. I think we were doing like 180 shows a year.
Okay.
And the travel was grueling, and that we were sleeping on the floor of vans. It turns out it's really easy to screw yourself up. But, you know, metal, right? It's great.
Yeah. It's really funny, actually, because I was speaking recently with Adam Breeze. I don't know if you know him personally at all. He was ex-Raven Eye. He's now playing with Wargasm UK. And,
oh, cool. I don't know him personally, but yeah, great bands.
Yeah. So... and he was talking about the importance of the discipline of playing drums, because obviously it's so easy, as he said himself, to pick up bad habits and get in there, and then like trying to rectify those later on is a problem. So the importance of maybe having somebody to give you a little bit of guidance that can keep you right.
Yeah, for real. It's really important. It's one of the things I actually focus on as a teacher these days. As I became a teacher, well, I couldn't play drums as a kind of a career move.
Yeah.
To stay at least close to music and, you know, try to stay to my passions even for a very difficult time. But in all the drum teaching that I actually do, I focus a lot on technique, on conditioning, on, you know, body conditioning, wellness, nutrition, hydration. Especially when drummers are like, I'm going on tour, what kind of paradiddle should I be doing as warm-ups? I'm like, forget the paradiddles, focus on what's going on with your body.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's got to be so demanding physically. I sit back all the time and watch drummers who are giving it everything, and obviously the adrenaline of playing live compared to practicing at home or in a studio is a totally different discipline again.
Hugely, yeah. I think we tend to play harder on stage because like where the adrenaline like kind of hits in, and like the world kind of slows down when the adrenaline goes up. The songs feel slower, and we can't try to squeeze more and more in. I think as I say, with technique being so important though, I think it really helps when the technique's right, because it's kind of the difference between punching a wall when it's bad. And drummers, sometimes we punch our legs when we hit the snare and stuff like that. And but then when the technique gets really good, it's kind of more like playing tennis or basketball, if you know what I mean. You're like, with a basketball, you're not like holding a ball and smashing it against the ground. You're pushing the ball. You push the ball into the ground, it bounces off. It's very, very similar in when drumming goes right. Some sounds, they're not quite the same, but that's kind of my goal all the time, is to just make it feel like it's basketball the whole time, and then I'm not soaking anything up. I don't get blisters anymore. I don't get really big wrist aches. I just get normal issues. Like if I sleep badly, like on the day of that 20,000 person show, I slept really badly and I lifted something badly and hurt my shoulder. But vocalist has some turmeric extract tablets, which were like the best anti-inflammatory. Did lots of stretching, did a bit of deep tissue work on the plane. It was like, I was good to go, because I've learned these things. It's hard though, because you get hurt, you try to play harder, you get stuck in a loop. That can be really bad, because you want to play and let out your energy, and then you're also hurting. It can lead to a really nasty like a loop, which I definitely had been stuck in since I was like 16. So I'm really glad to have broken out of that with therapy as well, because there's all sorts of angles to that, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And you talked about obviously starting off in the piano. Out of curiosity, was there anything from the discipline of playing piano that transferred across when you started learning drums?
Yeah, I think my love of musical discipline has just been really strong with me. But it's really interesting for me. I find it's an extreme turn off, like to have to be very disciplined about something I don't actually care that much about. But it's when the music activates you and hits right, and it makes you want to study it and to write it and study that process more, and then get looped into that. Then I think there's a real similarity between classical music and metal like this, like progressive metal, and music that requires a high degree of kind of study and progression within technical capability as well. But it's never all about the technical capability. It's about the feeling that insane construction gives when it's like this wonderful tapestry that's incredibly like delicate, but it's just really like enjoyable to hear, and it kind of makes you want more. It's quite addictive, really, I guess.
Yeah. And obviously, I can understand the attraction of the classical lessons and stuff. So where did the rock and metal influences start creeping into your life?
Oh, I guess adolescence, and then like, kind of hanging out more and more with
the wrong people.
Yeah, like, well, no, they're definitely the right people. I was in this band with the bassist who was playing in As Lions. His name's Steph. We made our first band together when I was like 13, and that was just such a ride. We were just writing riffs, kind of copying our influences, like a lot of Lamb of God style stuff and everything. And it was really fun. We had a really good time. We did lots of stuff with a bunch of music, and there's a bunch of people from that tiny little scene who've made it into the wider world that we keep seeing every now and again, which is really sick. But yeah, I think like it was just adolescence for me. I think I was just kind of like, I'd spent long enough doing that thing, and then I think I heard like Slipknot self-titled, and I was just sold. I was like, yeah, done. This is so much more interesting than Rachmaninoff or anything like that. Like, I was just like, this is cool. I like this. I was painting my hair, painting my nails black, and started just going to town.
And you were gigging then from an early age as well, and so were you like in your early teens out playing live?
Yeah, I guess we started doing our first concerts at like 14, 15, kind of like, like I think I might have played like a school performance with that band when I was like 13. I got a video of that performance on my like my family home movies kind of thing, which is really nice to watch every now and again. And yeah, just always had a huge passion for performing and hanging out with people, playing music for them, and just enjoying that whole feeling live. I think I've just loved it since an early age. But I was performing a lot as a as a kind of a youth orchestra member and performing pianist, and when I was at a younger age. So I guess I just always loved it, and so I just kept doing it.
Yeah, and assuming that sort of prepared you then for obviously performing live as an artist, as a band in the rock scene as well.
I guess, yeah. Although I've only recently been learning to get out of my own way and just start actually performing in terms of enjoying the process and focusing on the performance, as opposed to, I think I've been getting it wrong for most of my life, just trying to be good enough to do it, and
Yeah.
do a good enough performance, and just judging the performance at every moment, as opposed to just being like, hey, I'm a guy playing in a room. It just so happens to be X amount of people watching it, but ultimately I'm just the same guy playing in the same room. I'm just sharing that experience, I guess.
Yeah, and like one of the questions I had thought of was about the discipline aspect I was talking about, and you touched on it already with your injury. The idea, for example, lessons and having somebody guide you through that process rather than doing it as a self-taught artist. So obviously you learned the hard way then that there should have been certain disciplines put in place for yourself that you should have been following over the years.
Potentially. I think it's because I kind of took my own journey because I just couldn't find anyone at the time, like when I started listening to things like, like Lamb of God, there was no way you could get lessons from a guy who played that kind of stuff. It wasn't in my local area, and the internet wasn't a thing. Like it was, and then even when Periphery blew up, the beginnings of the Periphery era, and I started listening to Bulb, Misha Mansour, under the name of Bulb, his early demos, and I started getting really into that again. Like I had a couple of friends in school who were quite into it as well, but there was no such thing as like finding someone who does that professionally and getting lessons from them. At least it didn't feel like that. That only started to come into play after I was already doing it. So, when you kind of take on that path on your own, it leads to problems. I did have some great teaching at this teacher, Colin Woolway, who was absolutely amazing. And he basically taught me lots of great techniques. I just abandoned them because I was trying to play really hard and really fast and fun, and technique was boring and metal was cool, and these fills and everything. But I think eventually I pulled it back and learned the hard way, and then started to reincorporate it and develop new techniques and new systems. But I think I ultimately learned so much from my physiotherapist that I now use in keeping my body in a good state off the stage and out of the practice room is so important, like so important.
Yeah, Adam said that himself as well. That really it took him a couple of years to realize that really the physical side of the experience and looking after yourself so that you're actually prepared to last the distance over a tour, for example, as you said, is so important.
Yeah, fully. Especially down to what you eat and staying hydrated, not partying too much, not getting a good amount of sleep. But at the same time, you can worry about those things too much as well, and then miss out on the fun experience of actually doing the thing. So finding that balance is sometimes extremely difficult, and ultimately, I guess it depends on just how well balanced you are mentally when you walk into that tour, and how much you're running away from the rest of your life. If you're running away from everything else and you're trying to just soak that up as much as possible, then all that anguish and the reason you're running from it is just going to present in, I don't know, drugs, too much drink, self-harm in some capacity. It's hard, no one. It feels like no one really talks about it that much, so it's it can be tricky, but there's always, it's nice to talk about the supportive elements of that, because it's hopefully people listening to it can think like, hey, there's actually a healthier way to do this and enjoy this.
Yeah, well, I think there's certainly in the more modern musicians, there tends to be obviously a more professional approach to it all, because obviously they're looking for the longevity. They've learned of lessons and mistakes of the older guys who've done it before, who are burnt out, or who were burnt out at one stage and maybe came back and doing it again. But like it's not a life for everybody, isn't it? Because as you say yourself, 180 days maybe on the road, living in vans, living in a confined space with 3 or 4 guys, that maybe hard to maintain those relationships as well.
I think if the passion drives you towards that environment, then it's the right environment for you, because it's the right place. It's just like, you'll put yourself in that place because you're dreaming of it, and I think it's the same for pretty much anyone. If you're imagining a lot and you're manifesting it and you're working towards a goal, someone who wants to be an astronaut finds themselves on the ISS, doesn't go like, this isn't, that place was for anyone who wanted to do that. And it's just, I guess it's the same the same kind of thing. You know, I guess I never, when I listened to music, I wasn't exactly like, oh, you know what would be great is if me and 7 other sweaty bald guys could just sleep on top of each other in this van, isn't it? But one, it's just the necessary step to getting to the other, because you're doing a show, you might be getting paid like gas money to be on, like, in the middle of Europe, which as an 18-year-old is like, yeah, great, let's go do that. I don't care. I'm just excited to do it. You know, like if that means I got to not brush my teeth for 7 years, then whatever, it's fine. You know, like
yeah, yeah. I know. The beauty of the industry. It's nobody realizes what it's like. Actually, it's a car crash.
Yeah. Well, the industry is kind of like a snap-on once you realize that, oh, hold on, it's completely untenable to just do this like that. And then these systems and these people start into playing like, well, I've got this mate who actually wants to help musicians, and you know, they start labels, and then they create advances to help on the whole, like, let's get you on the road, let's use our contacts. And then the industry starts just becoming an extension of those natural people who just enjoy doing it anyway. It's just at some point they had to go, hang on a minute, this is a bit ridiculous. If we're going to keep doing this, we're going to have to set up some systems here. And then the quality and the integrity of those systems are not really governed by anything other than, like, you know, trial and error. So that's why the industry is just kind of great from every area, from hobbyists all the way through to really great managerial types with investment and everything. And like, so it's you know, you get, like, you hear terms of like A, B, and C grade things, but there's no benchmark. It's just people who are like, and then what people are searching for. So a really interesting term, but yeah, there definitely is like a bona fide industry. It's just really interesting when you think about that. There's no start or end point. It's just a very blurred area of gray, and then you can call it very professional, and you can call it completely, you know, batshit crazy. And that what's in between is you don't really know where you are until you're there and you're seeing it happen.
Absolutely, and I'm always really fascinated by that aspect of what I would call the growing pains of a band, because you guys will have seen it all through your journey. You know, from the days of being, say, a couple of guys in a van driving yourself from tiny venue to tiny venue to, I'm sure you've played some massive stages and stuff now with your success, and then go from, say, one of those large stages back into a small venue again. Even on your UK tour there, I think we caught you guys live at the Flapper in Birmingham.
Oh, you were at the Flapper?
Yeah. Yes. So like my photographer was there, and
yeah, that was fun. I was just thinking of the Flapper when you were talking about thinking about the fact that like 3 days ago we just played to 20,000 people.
Exactly. And the contrast.
And then that show at the Flapper was so much fun. It was only tricky as a drummer at the back of the stage, only seeing about 20 people at the front, and just knowing that, well, if I stand up, maybe I can see the other 100. But you know, it just had this energy, it just had this vibe, it just had this excitement and this intensity in ways that 20,000 cap gig didn't have, because I couldn't connect with them, because they were a bit too far. I could feel them and I could hear them screaming in the distance. That was sick, but like it was. It's I guess it's really interesting, you know, that those two worlds can exist at the same point, but also those kind of gigs at the Flapper, for example, you know, let's say 10 years ago. I mean, I remember doing some shows like back when we first started out. I remember we did this tour with While She Sleeps, who were also just like, they were early in their career, really, really quite small as well, in a band called Carcer City. And I remember we traded our headline spot around depending on where we were, because they were bigger up north and near their home, and we were bigger down south. So we kind of traded that, and, you know, we'd have like 50, 60, 70, maybe 100. And that would be like, oh my God, this is incredible. 100 people. And it was just so cool. But ultimately, I think we were basically doing the same thing. We just weren't doing it quite as well. And we hadn't, you know, developed it. But then I kind of look at Sleeps, and I've seen they haven't changed. I mean, they've obviously developed, but it's the same band. You know, it's just you do it, you make mistakes, and you get better at them. And when you see these refined acts, all you're seeing is, you're not seeing the million mistakes they made and the million moments of anguish that they had. And it's so easy for musicians to go like, you know, I've got to get this right the first time. And it's like, no, you don't. You need to get it wrong 1,000 times. If you want it to look like that, you've got to refine it. And you can't refine it without screwing it up and letting people down, and you know, playing some bad gigs and drinking a little bit too much that one time. And it's just, there's just always, maybe, I mean, obviously maybe not the latter, but there's just so many it's so many interesting screw ups that if I couldn't, if you asked me to spend even like 20 hours recounting every mistake, I literally couldn't even remember them all, because no point focusing on them. You got to make them to get better though. So.
Yeah. It's like a rite of passage, though, really, isn't it? As you say yourself, it's all part of the learning experience, and the biggest learning experiences are the mistakes. The good times you'll forget about very quickly because they come and go. But when you've made a mistake, that haunts you for a while, and you remember that.
Well, if you're focused on the idea of I'm not allowed to make a mistake, then the good moments they'll never exist in your memory. You'll never recount them, because you'll never be like, yeah, this is going great. You'll just be like thinking about the hype. I hope the next bit doesn't go wrong. And I feel like now that I've done it a while and grown a bit older, I'm like, I really need to be appreciating the things that are going well as they're happening, and not overthinking and not screwing it up by being neurotic about it. I've done that for too many years in my life. And so now those good moments that are happening, I'm like, great, this one didn't go wrong. This is feeling awesome. And that's good, because otherwise you're just scared or making a mistake 100% of the time.
Yeah. And you touched on, obviously, you had your injury back in 2015. So how long did that take you to get over it?
I guess I think I actually did the original injury in like 2014, but I kept playing through it until 2015. I didn't actually start playing again until I did play in the middle of it. So it wasn't like I stopped for 5 years. It was like I kept kind of trying to play through it, and I'd do some like 2-week, 3-week rests, and then try it again, and then it would fail again, and then we'd try the thing, and it just turned out that the issues were more serious than I thought they were. And sometimes it's hard to do those kind of exercises that you got to do every day. I dreaded doing them because I just wanted to be back doing it. So I probably slowed down my overall general recovery by going through about I want to say 5 or 6 waves of kind of managing, not really managing, but what was present through that whole 5 years was that I couldn't stand for long. I was in constant pain. And that's because in 2014, when I tore my shoulder tendon, I also tore my hip socket. I tore a labrum inside there. The shoulder could be fixed without surgery, it turned out, but the hip couldn't be. But I focused for so long on my shoulder, and I just thought I had a bad back or whatever. But it turns out I had this serious injury underneath. And in 2017, I started losing the ability to walk on tour. Like my legs stopped working. The sciatic pain was so bad. It led to a point where I had to leave a tour in Prague midway through. I was playing for a guy called Angel Vivaldi. I mean, I've always loved doing sessions and stuff. So, but I had to leave him playing drums on tracks midway through the tour. I had to pull out of a bunch of gigs with a band I had joined called Disperse in the interim. That was a really amazing experience. But there was a lot of things I couldn't do then. And then again in 2017, after the whole not being able to walk thing, I thought I kind of recovered. Tried to do some sessions. I did a tour supporting Animals as Leaders. I was playing for 2 support acts, David Maxim Micic and Nick Johnston. And then I had another festival, Tech Fest, UK Tech Fest, 2 days after, and did a rehearsal with the band I was meant to play for, Novena, which went well. But then during the night, something swelling wise went over the edge again. And the next day I couldn't walk, let alone do anything with my legs. So I think I got through those sessions playing them on keyboard drums. The skills kind of came around there. I'd learned them years ago to get it, when I couldn't play it physically, but my fingers worked fine. I was like, well, at least this way I can do something. And I've had a lot of fun on Twitch doing that as well. But then once I realized that I just couldn't deal with letting anyone down again. And I was like, I've got to focus more on me and being okay and ready to do this. So then I had that surgery, and it took a long time to get that through. I started teaching as a music teacher, and then got the surgery about a year later. Made my recovery by 2019, started doing some kind of pop gigs. I think my first actual gig back after all of that was with a pop artist called Hadi in Dubai, which was a beautiful experience. I remember it so clearly. It felt so great. Tough of the top. Yeah, it was beautiful. And then made my way back from there. Rejoined Monuments in 2019. We did the single Animus together, which was kind of a B-side left over from Phronesis, the 3rd album. And then 2020, my first gig back was, funnily enough, in Mumbai in India as well. Yeah. And then we did some touring. COVID hit, but this time it was like, okay, this pause isn't because of my health. This is because the world's health. So I've kind of stayed as a focused professional musician since. since then. So
yeah.
interesting journey, a bit kind
and
of
how was your lockdown experience then? What did you do with yourself to keep yourself sane?
I kind of turned my studio into a really nice audiovisual environment slowly but surely, because I really got into live streaming. I took a month of just being depressed because I was so excited to go to the States and keep going with that career move that felt like it was going so right. I just quit my job as a teacher to go full time with Monuments, and then it all fell apart. So after a month of moping around, I kind of started asking some friends, trying to learn how to live stream, started to pull it off. Managed to get monetization status on Twitch pretty quickly, and then I started doing some musical muck around streams with keyboard drums. And then as I did it more and more, I just got like seeing how other people were doing it on there and wanting to grow it myself and enjoying growing with the community. Kind of just upgraded my studio a bit at a time, and yeah, I kind of just got really into filming myself while recording myself while streaming. And doing sessions throughout doing that. I think that, and then 2020, that was most of 2020, and then 2021 was a balance of that, and then really focusing on Monuments and growing a new record, so that by the time COVID kind of was ending / becoming normal and the world was opening up again, then we could have an album and pick back up, and that's just led to here. That's just been like a solid year's hard work, and we kind of just at that point now where we're really starting to see an amazing response to that new record.
Yeah. And what was your first gig back then, post-pandemic?
Post-pandemic, I did a little tour with the singer from, I did a video gig in pandemic. I did I sessioned for Tesseract for their show Portals, which was like a live stream experience. But it wasn't a live stream. It was just it was like a Blu-ray, kind of like a filmed show. So that I kind of cheated. I did one in there, but there was no crowd in the room. The crowd got to see it like a month or two after we filmed it or whatever. And that was really, really fun. But then after that, Dan from Tesseract, the singer, invited me to come on tour with him doing his solo. He did a tour as a solo artist, and that was really fun. So we did that in January this year. So that was my first kind of tour back. It was really special. The producer and guitarist for Dan, whose name is Paul Ortiz, he's also a musician called Chimp Spanner, and who I've been friends with for a long time. He actually used to play in Monuments back in 10 or so years ago. Monuments and Chimp Spanner, we would share musicians so that he could do his stuff live and we could have a second guitarist to play with Browne to play the multiple parts that we had. But yeah, then my next apart from doing functions on keyboards, like playing wedding gigs, which I think I've got one on Thursday. Thursday and Saturday I'm doing a couple of like functions, I think, for the Jubilee, like whatever thing it is, or the Queen's birthday or whatever. The next actual metal show, I think, was just that UK tour that we did that had the flapper on it.
And how did you find that then, the response, obviously getting back out on the road, everybody's so hungry for live music again?
I mean, for one, just being hungry for live music in January, that with Dan, that was really special. But something really magical was going on that March tour. From the first show, I just felt like that the hunger for live music, plus the response we'd had from drip feeding singles out since late 2021. We really ran that long. We played the long game on that one, but it just felt so special. Everyone knew so many lyrics. Everyone was screaming stuff that we didn't expect it. The reaction to the songs was just bigger and better than we ever could have imagined. And it was really, really marvelous. And it just made us feel incredible, like really special touring. Everything since that record's come out that we've been doing has felt like an actual another level. Like it's and we've been doing it for a long time, and something's twigged. I think we've activated in the right way. I think we put the right amount of marketing value in marketing well, of really focusing on how do we announce things, turning one event into like 2 weeks of mini posts, just really getting into that world of it, which was really hard. I think it's done something, but I think the quality of the music, that something beautiful is being captured, and something really, really amazing is happening now, and I just couldn't be happier.
Yeah. And what do you make of this sort of modern approach to social media side of things and the marketing side, the PR side of things. Obviously, with modern music now, it seems to be drip fed, as you said. Where in the old days, like literally was an album, maybe 3 singles, but it's constantly keeping people on their toes, isn't it? You know, trying to keep the audience engaged.
Yeah. Well, there's it's just a difficult world, isn't it? Because we're you know, the social media platforms are making trillions off of people's attention, and so everyone is just trying to find that bit of attention for themselves, and there are things that actually just do work, and it's hard. It has to be from the narrative, has to make sense from what you actually do and what you actually care about. You can't throw everything you're about into you know, just throw it out and start doing what Adidas does, because it's, you know, people aren't stupid. They, you know, they can't, just because someone threw some attention for a split second and they caught onto it just for that split second doesn't mean that they're going to be interested. It's like they're going to get that tiny little bit. You got to hook them on the thing that you're doing, and it's then got to be the same as it always was, which is, it's got to make sense. It's got to be something that they're actually interested in, and everything else. So I guess I see it more as an opportunity, but definitely have fallen foul of overthinking it and just doing it the way that I've been told I should do it, because there are so many marketing people who are also making their money pay their mortgages from telling you how to do it, and it's just so oversaturated. It's a completely different world, and it's easy to forget that the music and the story comes first, and the rest of it you can copy everything. I did actually learn this from a marketing person. You can copy everything, but don't copy the process. I don't or something like that. I can't remember what the specific word was. But you can copy the thing that they did, but just do it in your own way. Make it, because we already know how to do that. It's just hard to think outside the box with it and be confident in it. We a lot of the time kind of can think like, people don't really want to be throwing my stuff in their face all the time. They'll just think I'm a tryhard, and then you think about the people that you have hired or the gigs that you have gone to see. And if you really think about it, how the hell did I go see that? You're kind of like, oh shit, I actually think I saw that on a Facebook post or on an Instagram thing, or Binley Mega Chippy on TikTok or some shit, you know, like it just, you know, you're gonna fall foul to it because it's fun to consume information in that way. It's a dopamine hit. So
absolutely. It is weird and wonderful times we live in, so you have to sort of play the game, but it's you don't want it detracting from the creativity as well, because you can get sucked into it, can't you? You almost need somebody who's good at that to look after that aspect for you.
Yeah, but then they're never going to get who you are and how you do it. I mean, we've thought about bringing people on board, but there's just so many people you could give a ton of money to and they'll do someone else's thing. I think the best thing is when you have someone who knows all of those details, and if you can then come up with a great idea of a thing that you're going to put out or a thing that you're going to advertise, and then you can kind of have the creative narrative edge of that campaign in mind. They can then go, the best way to present this, if that's your goal and that's your funnel and this or that and the other, then these are the particular tools that will help with that. Let me go put that. But it's really hard to get into that vibe, and then by the time you've kind of worked that out, then you're kind of just a Google away from finding the current best way of doing that, because of the blog landscape of everything. If you've already once you know that part, then you're one step away from just doing the dang thing. You know, you're running an advert based on the profile that you've made for the person that you want to show the thing to anyway, and then you've kind of done all the work. The only things left to do is have the confidence to just try it.
Sell it really.
And one of the most interesting things that I learned from a marketing guy over lockdown was and this is so much more than just marketing, it's musical as well, but it's like, if something's not working, don't change everything, just change one thing and A/B the two. Don't change everything, because if you change everything, you'll never know what was doing right. You'll be guessing the whole time. But change one little thing, and then look at the metrics, look at the emotional reaction of it. And if you can compare the two, like for like, in an unbiased, objective way, you'll know which one resonated better with the fans, or what resonated better with you. You can take that to, making meals. It's just, if you've got a bit too little salt the first time, if you also add pepper, you're not gonna know. And if you care about knowing, then you need to care about testing, and it just counts so much for everything. I wish I'd thought about it like that before, because I've just been in my own way too much in my own life, because I just have thought that it's too overbearing or too,
Yeah.
too much of a sellout mentality. But then you realize, hey, I am actually trying to do this as a career, and I also do like the idea of lots of people getting to hear this. And
Yeah.
I'm the only person who can. Maybe I'm not the best person who can do it, but most of the time, I'm the only person who cares enough to fucking go out there and put it in front of them. But thankfully, that mentality is shared by my bandmates. So we all put in so much time in trying to just find the right way to do it, and then that obsession and that family vibe comes together really well, and great things apparently happen.
Yeah. Pardon. It's true. It's a process of elimination, as you say, sometimes, and it can be just little fine tweaks that make the difference with somebody resonating with you or just getting the message across. And as you say, if you put that level of commitment into this as well as you put into the music, then it's gonna eventually pay off, isn't it?
Yeah, for real. It's just got to all be balanced, and it's all going to make sense to the thing you were trying to do. At the same time, you can go too far down the rabbit hole, and you could like the sound of drums so much, but you want to do it with the best sounding skins. You can eventually lead that down too far to the point where you haven't played drums in so long because you're herding goats, because only homemade goat skin is the best for the. You can just take that, and again, like everything, just don't go too far. Know when to delegate at the same time. Yeah.
And just speaking of the new album, then In Stasis, so it came out in April there through Century Media Records. Tell me a little bit about that. Was that an album that was written sort of pre-pandemic and paused by the pandemic, or did you guys do that over the pandemic?
I think we did it over the pandemic. I think in 2021 we started really working on it. I think it kind of got birthed accidentally. It got birthed when our guitarist Ollie decided that he didn't want to continue with it. He kind of left shortly after the song Dead Nest came out, which was a sort of, we were just writing songs with no real reason. We were just doing it to do things, to keep honing our craft and keep putting songs out and share our music with the fans. And then that was a song that it was Ollie's song. So after that came out and he then decided it wasn't for him anymore, we then kind of had to ask ourselves, how do we do this without him? How do we go back 10 steps? Because we'd done so much with him. We used to do stuff. Obviously, he joined not right at the beginning of everything. So we kind of then, with Andy then going, me and Andy trying to work out how to help Browne to have instrumental songwriting partners so that he didn't feel like he was just out there on his own with it.
Yeah.
We ended up going over lots of old demos, finding some gold, and it was a lot of it was Andy's like passion for hearing some of this stuff from a new standpoint. We then started to develop this new system of like saying yes to ideas that weren't finished, as opposed to always needing the ideas before. Everything needed to be great and perfect instrumentally before even thinking about adding vocals or releasing it. So there was stuff that was kind of in the throwaway pile from before that Andy and then he kind of coaxed me into then like getting part of that process and getting stoked about these ideas. And we just started getting things written in a way that we hadn't done before. And then Andy started songwriting with us in a way that hadn't been done before. And at the same time, Browne also involved Mick Gordon. He asked him to get involved. He's an amazing musician who made the music for the Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal soundtracks, and has worked with lots of other artists. And then he was making all these suggestions. And then we had our mix engineer, George Lever, who was also making kind of production style suggestions all together in a digital community that we fostered for all of us to be able to talk about these songs in a managed way. And it just quickly turned into this incredibly positive, awesome experience that it just couldn't have happened if we weren't in lockdown, had lost a primary member and songwriter. It just wouldn't have happened. But we ended up finding this stride and this new thing that was just really exciting for us. But I think it was a self-writing concept album. We didn't know what it would be called. We were just writing things that made sense for us. And I think the feeling of being stuck in the middle of polarizing forces is what we were feeling, and thus is what In Stasis ended up becoming the common theme around. It's kind of like life imitating art, imitating life a lot of the times with these things. But we just can't write music without being made from the feelings that we're already having, and because it's those concepts that drive the riffs. That no riff exists in our heads without a reason and a feeling to, because it's ultimately just exploring feelings.
Yeah, for sure. And what is the sort of songwriting process then? Because I was just thinking to myself, I listened to the album earlier on today, obviously prepping, and like some of the songs kick off so fast, blistering. Obviously, Browne's guitar work, etc. Does he tend to send you like a rough demo of a track, and then you have to work the drums around that? You ever listen to it and think, Jesus, what are you doing to me, man?
Well, he usually writes to some kind of drum groove, and and because he's programming the drums as he's going with it, so he writes things, and it already sounds like it's got guitars, drum, bass, and it starts sounding really like full straight off the bat. Yeah. And then then we kind of just get into this endless process of refinement. I think what we've done recently is we've done less refinement, and we've been more open to trying changes out together. I think, but usually, yeah, he's usually got some pretty crazy things going on within it, and they're the things that inspire us to continue working on it, because he's just had this great moment where he's gotten into the flow, and he's really into the ideas of using motifs in a way where you can attach them together using systems that you're comfortable with. You can write a small amount of actual content, and then the way you purpose and glue that content together, these little motifs, they tell the story in a bigger way. It's kind of like with music for film and music for TV, like Captain Jack Sparrow will have a theme, and then another he'll have his character's theme it's called a leitmotif, and then you'll have other characters will have their themes, and when they interact in certain ways, that piece of music is the two themes juxtaposed with a particular character or mood. Or if they're in the middle of a fight, then it's powerful and loud, and if they're in a touching moment, then it's quiet, and it's that kind of tension release process. And it's basically the same with how he goes for it. So if the song's feeling like this is highly tense and needs to be released, or we need to take the tension up a bit and then release it, we just kind of follow our instincts, and then trial lots of different versions and pick our favorites, and kind of argue about them, get passionate about them. But Andy likes to hear a full song. It doesn't have to be written perfectly, but he just needs to hear something that makes sense from intro to outro, that has choruses, that has moments, that has everything that he needs to be able to then go in there, and then he can make his parts. And from that moment, it will then kind of change, and it's just a matter of who's kind of feels stronger about what, and what can we actually agree on as a group, because we'll all have our favorite moments, and riffs will want to get heard repeated. There's so many moments where there's a song where one of us wanted to change it, and we just kind of gave each other like, okay, you know what, I'll back down on that one, but there's this one that I really want to change, and then we'd find our flow with that, which is super interesting when I think about all the different versions of the songs that there have been. It's really cool, because none of them are better than the others. They're all just like the best group compromise and group representation of what we were all feeling, which makes it feel really like a band in a new and exciting way, because there was just so much compromise and collaboration in this one.
Yeah. And so does Andy come in with the vocals then at the end, and after you guys have got a completed track then for him to work through?
Oh, no. We just have that first version of like the written song, and then the vocals will come in, and then we then started to cut his vocals around a bit if we had an idea, not just for the sake of it, because they're so well made as it is, but like sometimes there'd be sections, like there's a song that I wrote called Somnus. There's like after the first chorus, he did these great two vocal bits. One of them was screaming, and the other bit was sung, and he'd done them the other way around. But when I heard it, I was like, this energy feels, actually, it was easy to just play with that and imagine, oh, how about if we did that? And then Andy himself would actually then go, he'd go and do some retuning to the song in a way that would change the chords, which then Browne would then, write again and again. Like there's what song was I thinking of? I think it's False Providence has a bunch of riffs that the notes were changed by Andy when he tracked along to it, and then they ended up being written as bigger chord sequences. I think it's like the riff after the chorus. Like originally that was just just like it was at the end of the song, but Andy had just done like some pitch moves, and then Browne had gone, that's cool, but let's take it further. And then we'd do the same with Andy. We'd retune a few bits, and that's kind of how like the Cardinal Red chorus came about, which is really weird and jazzy and fun, because we just had the ability to toy with each other's parts. And I would then muck around on the drums and take things up a notch. I'd be doing a lot of programming, and the Lavos originally didn't start with a blast beat, and I just felt like starting it off really crazily. It started off with kind of a low, kind of just a sludgy beat to it, and it felt a bit like, this could be more crazy. And then I think that first demo of my crazy drums made the whole song take a crazier edge and stuff like that. It was just really cool. We all played off of each other's vibes as opposed to fought against them, but none of us had a clear picture. So we all let the picture come together.
Yeah, and I suppose sometimes it just falls into place. It's one of those things that can happen naturally, or sometimes you have to work through it, I suppose.
Definitely, 100%. I think you have to relinquish control in order to see what can happen.
Yeah. And tell me about recording of drums. What's that process like?
It's pretty interesting. Usually I'll go sectionally. I'll go through the song a few times. I'll try not to I'll try not to write the parts too specifically. I'll know what I want to play, and there'll be some things I want to do exactly the same way, but I'll be wanting to explore it a lot of the time because the magic of the moment is in the improvisation of how I played it, the fill being slightly different each take. So I'll do 3 or 4 good takes of each section so I can really focus in on it and be, physically really on top of each section and really explore each bit for what it can be. Still thinking about the whole vibe of the whole song, and then I'll go in and I'll comp that and I'll find the moments that serve the song best, and with that can get revised a little bit. I can do a couple of versions of the comp before then editing it, tightening it all up, and then kind of working from there. And then the drums would get done. Browne would then record the guitars and bass onto that. Andy would then record his vocals onto that, while Mick was then building his parts, within that, all the bits of strings or synths or even sometimes vocal effects like on False Providence. And then that would then go to the mix engineer who would be commenting along the way. He did the whole mix of everything that wasn't, we did the mixes for Cardinal and Lavos earlier, but everything else got mixed in 3 days. And then that got mastered in 2 days. And then it was just sent to vinyl pressing on December the 9th or something. And it was just done. It was just gone.
Yeah. And does it feel like a relief then at the end of that process when you can sort of hand it over and say, look, we have completed, because it could be too easy just to sit back and constantly tweak, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, I don't think we wouldn't have put a record together if we hadn't set a deadline in the first place. So it was a huge relief. The stress was massive. We are such sticklers for detail, and we didn't do the rush that we needed to earlier. We always kind of like that though, and we work really well under pressure. So unfortunately, all of us were all quite ADHD like that. So it was really, and then it was weird. We did it, and then months went by, and then it came out in April. We had all these plans for it and everything, and then the plans all fell through. We made new plans, and then that kind of happened, and we were just there seeing it happen. People being excited about it, being like, "Oh, yeah, I remember what we were feeling last year. Now I'm there," But we're all kind of always thinking about the next year,
And so what's on the cards now? Then you're trying to recover from obviously India. So what have you guys got lined up in the near future?
Yeah, well, that was a random, nice little thing that we just did at very short notice. We weren't doing anything else though. So we're going to go do Hellfest in a couple of weeks, which is going to be really sick. Really looking forward to that. And then we've got a break for a while. We're going to do a little Europe tour. I think we're actually kind of done with UK shows for the time being because we just no UK festivals that we could kind of make happen. So we're going to do Europe for a bit, a bunch of shows there, which because we haven't played In Stasis on a club tour there. So we'll do that, and then we've got a festival that we're doing Italy as well. Straight after Hellfest, there's a new festival that got thrown in there. So and then there's another European festival after the Europe tour called I think it's called Dark River Festival. That's around about the 12th of August-ish. And then we've got a big American tour, which we're going to be doing, which America and Canada, North America, whole continent. So that's going to be really, really fun. And then we've got another thing that we haven't quite yet announced that we're looking forward to doing on another interesting part of the world, far away. So, and then after that, we're still kind of getting offers and assessing options and thinking about what to do. We've got a whole bunch of ideas. We're again a bit ahead of the cards, but plans keep going wrong. So we'll just keep them to ourselves until they're ready to be shared, because people don't want to hear about stuff 7 months before they're gonna come to fruition. Sometimes that's a little bit too long. 4 3 or 4 maybe, but I don't know. 7 feels like just truly
painful,
truly not cool.
Well, that's great. Like, it sounds you're going to be very busy over the course of 2022. We are still in. I can't even remember where we are.
Yeah, right. It's a bit odd. We just call it 2020. Let's -2 off everything. Let's just go back to
2020 version 2.0 or 2.3 or something.
2020
sure.
version 2, more likely. Yeah.
Well, look, Mike, absolute pleasure talking to you. Thanks for your time tonight. That was great catching up with you.
You too, Mike. It was an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, absolute pleasure myself. And once again, the guys dropped their latest album, In Stasis, courtesy of Century Media Records. Make sure you do check it out. Once again, Mike Malyan.
Yeah, you got it, man.
See,
Thank you,
I told you going to get it wrong at some stage.
Yeah, no, you got it. You put the effort in, man. I appreciate that.
Oh, good. Okay, well, look, thanks again, Mike. Pleasure talking to you again, and we'll see you on the other side.
You're super welcome, man. Thanks again for the chat.
Get your ass over to Ireland at some stage.
Yes, I would love to. We're trying to make it happen.
Yeah, do. Make sure I'll catch you then.
Nice.
Okay, bro. Take care.
All the best to you, dude. You too, man.
Bye.